Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Is there anything John has not done? That's my question today. We're talking with architect John Riggio, who along the way, aside from being an accomplished architect in the New York City metro area, I've learned fascinating things of what he's done, from being an art major to a tennis pro and on and on and on. And John is back with us today. Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Steve?
Good to have you back here. And we've talked about tennis before. Figured we'd get back into it because there's a lot of things that you didn't get to, but truly mean that you were a tennis pro back when you were in your 20s, right, in the New York area.
Yes. I have some big names I could talk about today. And I think just to start off, I was always talking about that there was a pro shop that sponsored me when I was 9 years old. And the pro shop was really owned by Mr. Patrick Mulrooney. And he was there in the pro shop. It was located in Hicksville. It was attached to like the old Goldman Brothers sporting goods store. He had his own spot in there. And one interesting thing about this pro shop is that he sponsored me. But before, in previous years, he was also the sponsor of John McEnroe. And I don't know if anyone knows about him, but he was the one who helped John McEnroe and got him all the publicity and everything to start off. And so when he sponsored myself, he could tell that I was really going to move up in the rankings and that I was going to really win big. And this whole thing happened because of that story with those tennis racket, this metal racket that was a Prince racket that my mother bought me as a gift. And when I was able to bend the whole racket and she brought it back to get an exchange, he knew right away that anyone who can bend a racket like that has to be someone who's going to become a pro tennis player. I mean, anyone who has the strength to bend a racket has to have the ability to play tennis. So that is what started it all.
Before you even continue.
And so his pro shop.
I want to ask you, playing tennis just on a novice level, are you talking about, John, either a forehand, backhand, you fired away and you bent the racket at the stem, the handle above the handle?
Yes. Usually like in the mid part of the rackets where the strings are coming down to the base part of the handle.
Sure.
At that area, I always was able to, I used to break the racket. Sometimes it would break right through. Sometimes it would bend. Sometimes it would bend like around where the strings are. So when I would hit the racket, either backhand or forehand, I had such a strong swing of the racket wasn't able to really hold up. And it used to really just bend. I mean, there was a chapter before this Prince racket. When I was playing with my family when I was young, they used to have wood rackets. Now, I think the wood racket was like an excuse that when the racket used to break, they probably thought it was just a wood racket, disposable. But I even broke my father's Dunlop it was a Fort. It was the Fort racket, Max Ply. It was a Dunlop Max Ply Fort racket, which is really like a excellent racket. I mean, you could probably play a pro match with that kind of racket. But even that kind of racket, I was able to break it at a young age. I had such an amazing swing that I couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
And I think my parents knew that I could really become like a pro player at tennis. But then when I was 9, I bought this racket, the Prince racket. I really wanted it. And my mother searched all around for it. She found this pro shop. And when they saw that the racket came back completely bent like that, they knew what was happening, that I was able to really hit the ball very hard and really hit onto the ball. So that was really started it. And so this particular pro shop, he was really the one who helped out McEnroe initially. And of course, McEnroe was 10 years older than me. So it's like a full generation of tennis players. And then their pro shop, he ended up going into retirement in about the year 1987. That's when I was on court 33. So when I had my own court 33, his store closed up. He went out of business. So any continued support from his shop, unfortunately, went away. So at that point, I really had to find new sponsors. So that's at that point, I found new sponsors after that. But that was with the whole thing with the tennis center. And he was the one who also supplied me with the sweats, like $3,000 sweats. Some of them were $1,000 sweats in his pro shop. It was very exclusive. And all those pro stock rackets. I mean, each pro stock was about $1,000. And he also put together the Prince brand Pick Me Up. He called around and had some scouts look at my playing and things like that. And the Prince scouts looked at me and they were able to pick me up. And so I had a brand name with my sponsor. So that was always very important. So he put the whole thing with the Prince racket. And the Prince racket company was very organized. They really were able to get me on all the tournaments at that time, particularly the national tournament was really important at that age. And each match of the national tournament is very expensive. You really have to have a sponsor. I mean, each match they were paying like $20,000. So there was a lot of money going through. And of course, they were able to make a lot of profit off me too. So it was very good. I was able to help them generate a lot of money. They were really happy with me. And I was able to continue playing. So that's where the whole thing with the sponsor took place in Hicksville, and things were really good. Unfortunately, the shop did close in '87, so I wasn't able to continue on with them. But that is where the story ended as far as that pro shop was concerned. So it was really good. And then, like as far as tennis is concerned, I think, like you say, like with the pro shop that he picked me up. So one thing about it was I was also able to get a lot of different things like my fitness test. Okay, now in tennis, you have what is a fitness test. First, there's a basic test you would take with a doctor, make sure you're physically fit, that you could handle playing tennis matches. And the next test is really a test that is conducted by the tennis pros. They have a tennis test, it's a Freud test, and what they do is they do things like test how fast you can run, say 10 yards, how many times you can jump forward, side to side, things like that. And it generates a number. And there are whole books written on these kind of tennis tests. And one amazing thing was I came out to become the number one tennis. And that was above some of the other people who were really like number one in that athletic test were a player called Vitas Gerulaitis, Ivan Lendl.
Sure.
And John McEnroe was high in the numbers with that test, but I really was able to become number one in that test. And of course, it generated a lot of jealousy. That I became number one, and I don't think it wasn't unexpected that I had the ability to do that kind of test. I mean, so if you look at like a tennis court, you see that it's you go like 10 yards forward and it has a certain width to it. It isn't really like running like 100-yard dash or like running a mile or something. It's just within the dimensions of the tennis court. So that's where your abilities are. So it turns out I was able to really excel at just that, running around on just the tennis court. And that made me number one in the standings there. And that was put in writing with the U.S. Tennis Center. They had that in writing. And so that is one thing that was really good. Then the next thing about tennis, another parameter that they were really looking for was one thing, when I went to the medical doctor, also my medical doctor, I was really number one in the test. I was the number one as far as my doctor was concerned. My doctor was a top doctor, and he was also a doctor that was doing things with sports and things like that. And so I did excellent with that. His name was Robert D. Pasca. He used to be a Marine doctor. And so he also confirmed that I was in excellent shape. I was the number one athlete in shape including all the Marines in his whole career. That's within my category, of course, because they have like big heavyweights, they have maybe smaller people in my category. So I was doing excellent right there. This was perfect for tennis. And then the next parameter they had was there. I was talking to Mr. Gary Lidas, Vitas Gary Lidas, and he was explaining a lot of times in the sport they have a current idea of people having the ability to achieve in more than one sport. I think a lot of people didn't know that, but for some reason, when I met the top group, they wanted to really see if I knew how to play any other sport really good. I think a lot of people may be trying to get into other sports like maybe basketball, baseball, football. But in fact, when I was younger, I did excel at another sport. I excelled at gymnastics. And since I was pointed out in gymnastics and made the Olympic star program, that sort of impressed them. I mean, that was good. And this whole thing with the gymnastics star program took place when I was a little older than 9 years old. I think I was about 10, 11 years old. And they had this whole thing with seeing if anyone's interested in learning gymnastics. So I volunteered and I went through the training with them. There was some other kids with me. And we did a couple of shows there. And one of them had someone represented from the Olympic star program. So what happens is when I made the match there with the Olympics, I did my Olympic routine, the gymnastics. And they really went crazy. All the parents and everyone were cheering. I was a clear winner in the gymnastics. And because of that, they gave me this whole training program called the Olympic Star Program. And the Olympic Star Program from there was going to lead to me going to California again. This is going to Los Angeles. A lot of things seem to end up going over to Los Angeles. What happened is the Olympic Star Program, since I was a sole winner, I think one of my teachers didn't want me there all alone. So they put in another 4 boys from my class to learn what's going on with the teaching that they were giving me. And one really amazing thing that happened was I realized that anything to do with the Olympics turned out to be very dangerous. Unfortunately, 2 of the kids that were there, they ended up, I heard they had died from car accidents. So out of the 5 of us, 2 of them died.
Wow.
So it was really a horrible thing. So after this whole educational went over with the Olympics, ever since that time, I've always known Olympic athletes. And so that is something good. So I know a lot of people, Olympic athletes, competitive athletes. And so from there, what happened was a few years down the road there, I think I had talked about one project that I really was pushing for. It was this job where a lot of world leaders ended up showing up for architecture. A lot of world leaders were there. And so as one bonus I didn't really point out was they also very nice. This was in an Asian community, a Philippine community. And they offered me to match with one of the females they had there. And they matched me with this very nice lady, Mimi DeMeo. So it was very nice. I met her, and I think she became an entertainer, Mimi Miyagi. So she was very good. And one thing I really found out about, which was really amazing, is the other athletes, they used to see me on television. They did see me. They knew who I was. They were able to recognize me. They used to notice that I was playing tennis on television. And in fact, I remember this name of this lady that, in fact, I did see her playing gymnastics on television. I remember this. This was really amazing. So this whole thing with meeting more people involved with like Olympic gymnastics and everything was still there. And that was really amazing.
John, I'm curious now, you mentioned the gymnastics that you dabbled in for a bit there. Do you think the gymnastics helped with your agility on the court?
Yeah, I think there was some things with gymnastics that were good, and I don't think they took away from my tennis playing. They could only add to it, because I think with the gymnastics, I noticed there was a lot of strength uh,
Hmm.
exercises, strengthening involved that I think would only have helped. Yes, I think it would only have helped. The gymnastics that went on for a short time and then it ended. So the whole thing with the jazz, even though it was a big influence and I got a lot out of it, it stopped, and then I was just back to tennis, and that was pretty good.
How did that feel to you when you're taking this tennis, call it agility test, um, and you're scoring as good, if not better, than established, really, really established tennis pros? How did that feel for you?
Um,
You had to be proud. I can't imagine,
yes,
that, and I guess you were a few years younger than they were, so they, like you said, that they were jealous. Here's this guy walking in and scoring these high scores, and these guys have been playing tennis for quite some time now, and you scored up near them, or if not topped them.
yeah, I think that's really what it is. That is correct. I think getting into the group there, playing with them, because I was there, and we were talking about how I made number one, and yeah, of course they were jealous. They were jealous. They were gonna, but officially it held. They put it in writing, and this had to do with also going back to my coach at the time, that they kept that score in writing with the tennis center, and they couldn't really remove it. But I think, yes, that was one point of trying to get in on the group, and I think them realizing that my playing was going to keep moving up, and I was going to make it to a number one spot, and they had to get used to that idea. That was it. So that's really what was happening. But yeah, though, I think there was some jealous with things like that, and that was good. And
How exciting though. Here it is, you're earlier in your tennis career, you're on TV, and here's these pros know you from seeing you on TV. People have seen you on TV playing. I mean, that's at that age, that's just amazing. I mean, the names that you dropped, every single name so far that you've said, I've heard of and know them well, like McEnroe and Becker. What was your connection to Boris Becker?
yes, Boris Becker, I have known him over the years. When I made the top group and I was moving up in the rankings, going up from the top group starts at the rank of 500, and I moved up from 500. I was moving through the numbers, getting to the rank of 100, and yes, so Mr. Boris Becker, he had just won Wimbledon in 1985. So he came back over here to New York to play with the top players at the U.S. Tennis Center, and from the U.S. Tennis Center, they were coming down to my court in Jericho. So this was at the point when I was saying all the top people were coming to play there. So we played a tour match, a pro tour match. The match was not a tournament match. It's a match that's really in between tournaments. Usually people play, they move up in ranking, they might move down in ranking, and they play matches. The matches are real hard matches. And I did play him in a full match, and it was a very good match. It was a hard match. He did his usual things. He had to really play hard, jumping on the court, falling down on the court, and things like that. But I think when he met me, he realized, he was coming there to play me, and I had amazing playing ability that I was able to really whip the ball around the court, and I was able to beat him, and this was really like some agony for him. I mean, he felt a lot of pain not winning the match, and he just burst into tears crying. I mean, that's really what happened to him. I mean, he didn't hold a grudge on me. He's a good player and everything. As far as he didn't hold a grudge or angry at me, and so that was good. And then after the match, there was a few minutes for him to really make some comments on me, because he knew up and coming play, and he could tell I was going to make it to a number one spot. And he also was giving me some input there that I really didn't know about all the different things. Was I was going to really would play the top tournaments, in the top league within the pros, playing like the American Airlines tournament, Manhattan Open, some tournaments that are really the biggest money makers, most prestigious. And so he could tell right away that I was going to play really great. And so that was good. And then from there, in fact, I did meet him again in 87. So I was at my own court 87. I made it 87. And I think, Vitas Gerulaitis was there. Boris Becker was there. About around court 33 were there. And, we were talking about my tennis career. And I think he was suggesting really for me to really get some big sponsors. Because at that time, remember, my pro shop had closed. My sponsor went into retirement. Prince Racket is idle right now. So Boris Becker was giving me some advice to get some people who could really help out, compete against the other players, other sponsors people have, that I can get in there, maybe even get some good advertising, get some, advertising in like Tennis Magazine and other things like that. And so he was helping me out because at that point, I couldn't stay idle. So I had to really take some initiative at that point to really find some new sponsors. And from that discussion with Vitas Gerulaitis and Boris Becker helped me. I really got on the phone, started calling around all the people I know. And I tried to find all people who could help me out, Richard Branson and things like that, and moved ahead. And I was able to find some sponsors. So that was really good. And that really helped me. And I think getting the sponsors and everything was able to make it where I wasn't shorted. So when I was able to move up in the rankings, I told you some things about getting knighted. And then after that, I was able to win my own tennis bubble at Alley Pond. And doing things like that is because I was able to get supporters backing my career. And so things went much better at that point, and we moved forward. As far as Boris Becker, I did see him years later when he was starting to coach Novak Dvorak, and that's before even Novak even had any tournaments. He didn't win any tournaments yet. It was right before there. So I knew them there. But as far as my playing career at that point, I was really older. Don't think I could really get back in the game, and that's where we were at that point. But I did meet them in a group for a while, and I
made friends with them again,
and one of the different players there.
When you look back, John, and we shouldn't have regrets because everything is a journey and you learn things as you move forward. But if you look back on your tennis career, is there anything you say to yourself, yeah, I probably should have done this, or I should have probably tried that? Anything that sticks in your head?
No, I don't think so. I think I was really at a point where I was trying to cover every little thing. I mean, they were from learning from playing tennis and the coaches and everything like that. I was, as far as I'm concerned, I was covering everything I could. There was nothing else I could really do. And so that is what I was doing. And
did it feel, I want to get inside your head back then, call it, back in 85, 86, somewhere around there. Was it like a tornado? Here you are, a young guy working your way up. All of a sudden you go from here to here. You're playing with the best in the universe, guys that have been at Wimbledon, and sponsorships and everything. Did you turn around like, what? How did I get here? Did it feel like that at all?
Well, in fact, before I got to the top group, the 500, I was already winning with some of the players in the junior level, below 18 years old. So at that point, I was already playing. I was playing with all the people in Andre Agassi's group at that point. I was moving up I started off with a ranking initially of 1,500. So I went from 1,500 to 500 as a junior. And then when I made 500, I entered into the top group. And that put me in position where I was playing Boris Becker at that point.
Unbelievable. It really is. And Andre Agassi, every single name you've mentioned, I know the name and I know some of the history, and I'm not like a huge tennis buff. And I know it because they're so big. they're icons in not just the tennis world, but the sports world, and the fact that you got a chance to play alongside them and maybe beat some of them at some point. Just an amazing career. And that along the way there, that led you into architecture and being an accomplished architect. I just want to tell everybody your website, John Riggio, RIGGIO.com. If you're at all interested in changing where you live or you work, he's the man with the plan. Like literally, you are the guy. And what an amazing history. You've done a lot and continue to do so. John, fabulous story. It's great hearing about all of this. And it truly, for me, brings back memories, because as you're saying that, the years and Wimbledon and the names, I've got the visual. I remember, I wish I knew you back then.
All right, great.
I'd be famous. Look forward to catching up again sometime soon, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.